Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's event, Google Analytics 4, Experts Needed, Your Students Can Help. And this is with Sabrina Tatalias. My name is Paul Cotter, and I'm the Director of Product Marketing for Higher Education here at 𝐒𝐭𝐮𝐤𝐞𝐧. We have a great event planned for you today, and I'm thrilled that you're here with us. As we begin today, I want to invite you to go ahead and use the chat feature. Let us know, say hello, tell us where you're from today, which school you're at, what you're doing for summer vacation. We want to know. Let us know. In fact, I want to do a little informal poll in the chat. It's summer, it's concert season. Tell us which concert you're going to this summer. Are you a Swiftie going to see Taylor Swift? Are you going to Beyonce? Are you Luke Bryan, Nickelback? Let us know the concerts that you're going to. Thanks everyone for joining. I see Michelle from Virginia, welcome. Emily from Texas, James from Dallas, Michael from RIT. Thank you everyone for joining us. Welcome, welcome. Today's presentation, we want to invite you to submit any questions that you have. So as we go throughout, at the end, we'll have a live Q&A. So feel free to ask any questions and we'll address those at the end. And just a reminder, please be respectful and polite in the chat today. We want this event to be enjoyable and safe for everyone. We have a lot of people joining us. Dante from North Carolina, welcome. Sergio from Mexico, welcome to you. We're international today. That's good to see. AJ from India, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you can't stay for the entire event, don't worry. We will be sending out this recording to each of you who registered. We'd love to hear your insights and your takeaways from today's event. So feel free to share those in the chat or to tag us when you're posting on social media. Additionally, we want this to be interactive. So I'm going to start out with a couple of poll questions. So this one, I just want you to type into the chat. Are you excited about the transition to Google Analytics 4? Are you excited? Are you nervous? Are you prepared? Are you unprepared? Type that in the chat. Let's get a pulse for what we're working with today and how you all are feeling in regards to this. So Melissa says neutral. Carol says unprepared. Emily says unprepared but excited. She's heard good things. Courtney is nervous. Liz is apprehensive. Tom is neutral. Okay, guys, this is great. Bernadette is always excited for new stuff. Michael's unprepared and unfamiliar, as with AJ. Guys, there's a lot of you that feel unprepared, so thank you for joining us. This is going to be so great. You're going to get a lot of great information from Sabrina today. Okay, we have another poll question for you. We're going to pop this one up. When did Universal Analytics shut down? So you can see some answers here, some choices. April, January, April of 2023, and July of 2023. Sorry, that first April was April 2022. So go ahead and enter your response in there and we'll get another feel. So looks like right now the majority is July 2023. We've got quite a few April. We have an April 2022 and a January 2023. So okay, give you a couple more seconds on that one. The answer is July 2023. So that is when Universal Analytics shut down. So looks like most of you got that right, but some didn't know. All right, well, so thank you for participating in that poll. Over the last decade, 𝐒𝐭𝐮𝐤𝐞 has developed more than 30 courseware and simulation offerings for marketing, business, communications, and now we even have accounting offerings. And we're not stopping there. We promise to continue to innovate and develop products in new subjects and categories. So today, we want to kick things off. And I'm excited to introduce to you 𝐒𝐭𝐮 CEO and founder, Stuart Draper. He's here and he's going to share just a couple of thoughts with us.
Hi everyone. At 𝐒𝐭𝐮, we're on a mission to help educators help students help the world. We create up-to-date, turnkey materials that save you time and make your job as an educator a little easier, and your students' jobs a lot more engaging. Our first-in-the-world simternships, or simulated internships, give your students real-world practice with the concepts that you're teaching them. These powerful simulations work hand-in-hand with our courseware. 𝐒𝐭𝐮 courseware gives you great resources like detailed lesson plans and auto-graded chapter quizzes, while your students get an accessible, engaging digital text. But you know what? While these materials are ready to be released, our work on them is never really done. 𝐒𝐭𝐮's slogan is "Stay Current." We update our courseware and simternships annually to keep them current with what's happening in your industry. If there's something you think we can improve, let us know. Consider us your custom simulation and courseware provider. If we don't make it just the way you need it, we'll keep working on it to make it better. We're dedicated to bringing you the best simulations and courseware in the industry, and we're not going anywhere. Over the last decade, we've experienced explosive growth, and we now offer more than 40 simternships and courseware bundles across 4 different categories: marketing, business, communications, and accounting. To date, we've helped nearly 1 million students at schools all over the world, and we can't wait to help you and your students next. Today, we're going to explore some great topics, ideas, tools, and strategies that can help enrich your curriculum, enhance learning, and keep you current with your industry. Throughout the event, feel free to chat in any questions you may have. The 𝐒𝐭𝐮 team will be standing by to help you. And if you enjoy today's event, you can visit 𝐒𝐭𝐮.com to get connected and see a schedule of our upcoming launches, fireside chats, presentations, and more. Each month, we host events just like this one, and we're building some great online communities for professors in the marketing, business, communications, and accounting spaces. We want to give you a place to meet new colleagues, collaborate on ideas, and share your professional insights and brilliance. So, thank you for joining us today. I hope today's event helps you, help your students, help the world. Enjoy the show.
Thank you, Stuart. Now, before I welcome Sabrina to the stage, I want to make you aware that for a limited time, we at 𝐒𝐭𝐮 are doing a summer t-shirt giveaway for all professors who are willing to hop on a call with a 𝐒𝐭𝐮 course consultant to discuss the digital marketing analytics curriculum or any of our marketing, business, or communication bundles. You can click the link that's popping up on your screen right now to get scheduled. This offer ends July 31st, so be sure and schedule now. Our course consultant calendars are filling up quickly. Now I want to just show you the shirts here. If you've ever been to a conference that 𝐒𝐭𝐮 has been at, you've probably seen these shirts before. This one says, "Everything I say will be on the exam." And then this one says, "It's on the syllabus." These shirts are a hit. Professors love them. And so we wanted to do something fun this summer and give everyone an opportunity to not only have a demo, a walkthrough, get a little more information about our products, but also to maybe get a fun t-shirt. So be sure and take advantage of that opportunity and click on that link. Now I want to invite Sabrina to the stage. But while she's coming on, let me tell you a little about her. Sabrina Tatalias is a senior analytics consultant at Bounteous. She has worked in the analytics industry as a consultant, where she works daily in tools such as Google Analytics 4, where she assists clients across various industries and helps them understand the tools to leverage for data-driven decision-making. She has a passion for data visualization through tools such as Google Locker Studio, along with sharing her knowledge through training her knowledge through training through the Bounteous Public Training Program for courses in GA4. She has a BS in information technology, from Point Park University, based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Her specialties are in the Google product suite, with her favorite tools being Google Analytics 4, Google Tag Manager, and Google Locker Studio. And here are a couple of fun facts about Sabrina. As a college student, she used 𝐒𝐭 products, including Digital Marketing Analytics by Nathan David. And she has also presented a 𝐒𝐭 webinar for us before. She presented in 2022. So Sabrina, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm very excited.
Well, it looks like there's a lot of people who feel very unprepared for this transition that just happened. So that's very good news for you. They'll be very interested in your presentation. So what I want to do is I'm going to hop off stage right now, and I'm going to turn the time over to you for your presentation.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you also for that great intro. So just to reiterate, my name is Sabrina Tatalias. I'm based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I'm currently a senior analytics consultant at Bounteous, which is a digital transformation agency where we're based out of US and international as well. So my day-to-day is doing consulting work where I'm working in tools such as Google Analytics 4 on a day-to-day basis, where I'm helping my clients with analytics audits, implementations, and data strategy. I also participate in monthly training sessions with clients and individuals who are professionals in the space and want to level up their knowledge with Google Analytics 4 as well. Fun facts about me, I love anything data visualization. I have some little pointers today on data visualization as well and how that ties to GA4. And then lastly, and especially with the topic today, I am a Google Analytics 4 expert in the making. It's a continuously evolving space with digital marketing. So you're never going to be the peak of your expertise because it's always new changes happening. So just keep that in mind as well. So I got a little bit of a sense from the chat earlier where people feel between maybe not feeling prepared, people who have already been teaching a course the last semester of your academic year. Although we have another poll launching, and the main question is if you've already updated your course material to Google Analytics 4 yet, whether you've done it in the past or for this current upcoming school year if you've done it already. And I'll give it a minute or two. The great thing about today's session is that regardless where you are, this session is for you, whether it's how to get a little bit more information about Google Analytics 4 for your understanding, maybe some pointers about how to maybe draft up a course with some different assignment ideas. This is going to be the course for you essentially. And great. Oh, it's interesting. Okay. I was saying earlier, I wasn't sure if the crowd was going to be people who've known about GA4 or more recent. That's definitely great. I see some people are getting there. Some people only recently heard about the switch. The good thing is that it only recently officially switched to GA4. And for a lot of those in academia, you do have about a month or two before your academic school year starts. So you do have time on your side, which is great. And then by the end of today's session, my goal is to get you to a spot where you feel a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more prepared. And you're going to come out of today's webinar with maybe some fresh ideas for what to bring to your course for, again, maybe what lessons to teach, or also some little assignments you could bring out. So I'm definitely excited for today's session. And thank you for your responses. Okay. So to really start at the beginning of today, it really is to just get a pulse check and put everyone on the same level playing field of what is Google Analytics 4, especially now seeing that maybe some only recently heard about it. So Google Analytics 4 in a nutshell is essentially the combination of Google Analytics for web, which we know it to be as universal analytics, and uniting that concept with Google Analytics for apps, which is historically known for Firebase analytics. So we're uniting the concepts from both platforms to be what is now called Google Analytics 4. The main thing I want to point out is that Universal Analytics really wasn't that old of a product. It actually came out around the early 2000s. And then over time, we see that shift of the digital marketing landscape. We see more privacy protection laws coming out and emerging, which leaves for Google product updates along the time as well, whether that's a update with Firebase for app tracking to be more privacy driven, or for universal analytics. Moving into more recent years, when GA4 came into beta testing in 2018, which isn't too long ago, and now officially moving into the crux where it's migration time. July 1st of 2023, which only was a few weeks ago, was the official sunset date of universal analytics for the bulk of accounts. So especially if you're going to be teaching with like a demo website, or maybe you're using a local small business to be partnering with for your course for a data set with GA4, a lot of those organizations are going to be that sunset date of July 1st. Although for anyone who may be a little bit more advanced, you might know organizations in the corporate level that are what's called Google Analytics 360 or Enterprise. Those accounts actually have an additional year till July 1st of 2024, I believe at this point. We'll be talking more about that throughout the webinar, but just a little pulse check about kind of the drive between moving to GA4 from Universal. And then I guess in a nutshell, the way to word it is that we're getting more privacy driven, and GA4 really hits on that. And then also it's the combination of app and web data, which we really didn't get before. Your data siloed. So for a lot of organizations and companies, they're getting more than just a website. They're getting an app, a kiosk, a tablet screen to do your checkout payment in the restaurant. There's more applications that we need to have that data combined, which is super imperative when you're doing data collection and data-driven decision-making. Here's some of the main benefits of Google Analytics 4 that maybe you weren't aware about. Some of the main things to call out is that it's very flexible and efficient. The main call out here is that there's a new data model, which I'll have in a couple more slides, that's really helpful when you're teaching students about the differences between Universal to Google Analytics 4. The main one I really like is that it's very easy to implement. It doesn't require a lot of tracking needed or technical background to get started. And then also, because it combines app plus web, it's the idea of cross-platform. So again, not having that siloed data for students who are going to be maybe entry level out of college, getting a job that's working with a company that has app and web, they understand how to analyze it with the Google Analytics 4 platform. Also, there's a lot of ad hoc analysis features. I love data visualization, as I mentioned. So there's a really nice feature called explorations I'll touch on today, which is great for custom reporting. And then also some intelligent features, which use a little bit of machine learning, anomaly detection, and more as well, which is something really to get excited about. Some high-level differences across Universal and GA4, and that's really what a lot of the talk is going to be about today, is for anyone who's already gone the tool or not yet, the big difference is that Google Analytics 4 is a lot more simplified, which essentially before it was a little bit clunky in Universal Analytics. Sections of reports would have a large amount that maybe you didn't always touch on a lot of them. GA4 is essentially taking a lot of that same data, but putting into a more simplified interface, which for students who are brand new to the tool is going to be a lot easier to teach them because there's less main reports to cover, which is something good to note because that could help save on time and help you focus on more features of Google Analytics 4 for your courses. A few fast facts just about Google Analytics and the digital landscape in general. But Google Analytics is used by the bulk of websites that we do know about. There are other analytics tools on the market, although Google Analytics is one of the more predominant tools to use for organizations. So that said, for a lot of your digital marketing courses or analytics classes, then that's something to note that it's good to teach Google Analytics for that reason over, say, another platform that might be available. Also, and I think we would all identify this, but mobile apps are just becoming a lot more popular. It's not just at the corporate level anymore for some of our favorite brands, but even small businesses are starting to get into mobile apps, kiosk, and more. And with that comes more data collection. We need a way to unify the data for decision making. That way we don't have those data silos anymore. So that also comes with why GA4 is moving in the direction of combining app and web data. So, as a college student a few years back, one of the best topics I ever learned was it actually was for an analytics course, but it was called an analytics career matrix. I kind of revised it to my own. This is essentially where I got the inspiration from. But for most, if not all careers, there's a type of Venn diagram where it combines different skill sets to make up that industry or career. And in that Venn diagram helps you know as a student where your skills need to be to get to the perfect dream role that you want. So, thinking in terms of analytics, this really helps to maybe consider how to pinpoint some of these skills to integrate them into your class as objectives. That when the student starts versus when they end, as long as they improve some of these skills, they'll be closer to being a analytics expert in the making. And some of those skills that you're going to see even included today is marketing or business acumen, communication skills such as presentations, writing documentation, leading presentations, calls with different individuals. Math and statistics is imperative. You don't have to necessarily be an expert in math and stats, but at least understand a general idea of how things are calculated. And then lastly, even coding and technology. My background's in information technology, but it was within a school of business. So I got a little bit of that business side, the technical background, and that really helps with the role I'm in today because there is a light element of understanding code to be more strong in the space. So for a lot of you, you might not have upgraded all of your course materials yet to Google Analytics 4. And coming from myself being a student a few years back, I could definitely side with putting ourselves in the student's shoes when we're thinking about how to update our course material. So a lot of the times in the college level, classes for digital marketing or just general analytics, you're only going to be limited to a certain amount of time frame. And your course might also cover more than just one platform. So you have to imagine students might come into your course thinking, okay, I want to learn just Google Analytics, or maybe they don't really know specifically what they want to dive deeper in. Your course might cover Google Ads, Google Analytics, social media concepts, and more. You also have to imagine students for a lot of courses in the college level are coming from different playing fields of background. You might have a student that maybe the previous semester interned with a company working in a tool versus others, it's going to be their very first time. Also, students require skills that they want to acquire for their dream roles. That's a great idea to pulse check to understand how could you get a student to where they want to be. And that's where you come in terms of how to fix your course or essentially update it to be more fitting for the student as well. The main problem though on your side is that the semester is very short. Anymore, it's maybe 3-4 months max. And that's really not a lot of time when you're focusing on more than just one platform. You're again focusing on potentially Google Analytics. Maybe you're talking about other platforms, Google Ads. So with that, you have to think about how can I fit everything in that's part of the course curriculum, but then also make sure it's something that students can retain. They have skill sets coming out of it. And that's essentially what the problem is a lot of times at the college level. And that's kind of where this presentation fits in. We're going to talk about how you can really combine all of your curriculum pieces that fit in digital marketing or the digital landscape and how to think about how to tie GA4 to it. That way you can fit everything in. And that's the solution. We have a really amazing textbook for Stuken. It's the Digital Marketing Analytics course book. They mentioned it earlier. I actually used this when I was in college. I had essentially a textbook that was of this one, and the course was for digital marketing. And in it, I believe we did Google Ads, social media, email marketing, analytics. So it was a little bit of everything as well. But this is a great textbook for anybody who is going to be using it because it really lays it out. It also is updated to Google Analytics 4, where it breaks down the material that way and has a lot of great hands-on exercises for your students as well. So something to consider. So this is my version of how I'd teach Google Analytics 4 to students. I also written a blog that I believe they're going to link at some point throughout the presentation, but essentially breaks this down into module format, similar to how you would for a college course as well. And there's different links to resources, exercises, and it's really about how to level up your student skill set to teach them Google Analytics 4. So I was super excited about that because I love education. So hopefully that's of benefit as well. The main thing I want to tie here is how can we ramp up our students to learn Google Analytics 4? That way, from when they start and end, they feel comfortable in the tool. The other hard part about anything in the digital landscape is that it's constantly evolving and changing. I saw a comment about how Google Analytics 4 seems relatively new. There's constantly changes. Another resource that we're going to share with you is basically Google releases everything with what's new in GA4 down to when it was in beta testing. That is of huge benefit for not only students, professors, even me in the analytics field on a day-to-day basis. I check it because it is constantly changing. So from something when you're developing your courses to maybe when it's time to actually get started with the class, there might be something new roll out that you want to include to your students. So definitely take a look at that resource, bookmark it. It's one of my favorite ones. So we're going to be diving through some of these level up phases, starting with something that's more foundational, getting into reporting, and then lastly, some bonus like level up stages where it's a nice to have for students who are going to enter the digital marketing or analytics field right out of college, which I'm excited to share. So one of the first ones is going to be very foundational. A lot of people might think, well, what's the reason behind something of teaching or understanding universal analytics compared to Google Analytics 4? The main reason behind this is that it's not only just foundational, but you have to imagine July 1st just happened where companies are getting onboarded onto Google Analytics 4. They're now having to rely on it more and more than they had to, especially because it's a new tool. They got to get comfortable with it. The main thing, though, is that since it was July 1st, the cutoff, a lot of companies are still going to be reliant on that historical data of universal analytics. So for students who might be seniors, you have to imagine that if they're going to get into a job that's about Google Analytics or an analytics role in general, then they might have to have a little bit of background of universal and how it compares to Google Analytics 4. So at the bare minimum, teaching about how the data is a little bit different, the interface, where to find certain things, that's a really nice to have, especially for students who are going to be more tailored to an analytics role specifically. Also, it's just a matter of preparing for high-level differences. I don't think at this stage it makes sense to focus only on universal or just on GA4. GA4 should be the dominant, but at least cover a day of material maybe on the differences of universal to GA4 so they have a little bit of background. And you could see something like this is a really good resource too if you're unfamiliar with how the data compares between universal to Google Analytics 4. And how this really changes with not only the data and how it comes in, but some of those metrics that we come in the interface as well. So metrics are, again, like a measurement of the data. So this is really helpful to teach students. That way they might have like an interview question about it. This is something I definitely include with any course at the moment that's about Google Analytics 4 specifically. Moving more foundational as well, but leveling up a little each step is data collection and how it works. We talked about at a bare minimum, showing them slight differences between universal to GA4. But next up is how do we get the data? Whether your students are going to be more of an analyst where the data is already there versus maybe students who go more the agency route where they're the ones doing the implementations, this is helpful to show them not only how the data is populated in the interface, but how to set up a Google Analytics 4 property and account. This is something that I definitely would teach all your students. A really great class exercise for this would be a mock GA4 property creation, and that'll be stepping them through how to set one up. For any organization or school, you could also teach this in a way where it's maybe a mock website, or if you're partnering with, say, the university with a website or a small business or a nonprofit, you could get access to a website that doesn't have it for them and do pro bono work where students can set up their GA4 for them. That's another great idea for hands-on application. Now we're moving along, we're getting into reporting, which for a lot of the times with digital marketing courses is the bulk of the course that you're going to have, is using the reports to pull data and insights. So specifically for reporting, you might be thinking, from what I said earlier, Google Analytics 4 is more simplistic in the interface, which for students that have not used Universal Analytics previously is going to be great because GA4 is more simplistic, which means there's not a lot of reports to dive deep on. I'll have a few slides on it, but you'll see, for example, what previously used to be the acquisition reports on how users got to the site, such as if they came direct, referral for social media. It's more simplistic from, say, 10 reports before down to 2 to 3 now. Which is definitely a big change. All the data is still there. The big difference is that it's more simplistic. So teaching them those differences is vital. Also doing walkthroughs of the reports on where to find particular data. The best way I found through my training experience for teaching the Google Analytics 4 reports is how to ask questions and then how that ties to different reports within the interface. So that's something I definitely would recommend as well. And then some kind of class exercise you could do could be along the lines of having different questions posed to students or student groups within your course, and then having them find it within Google Analytics 4 and then present that to the class of how they maybe found that data in there. That's a good way to show them not only how to find what they need within the interface, but also, as we know from Universal Analytics, there's a lot of different ways to pull and report on the data because there's other reports that might hit on it. So that's something I definitely would recommend as well. And we kind of get this idea too. So as you see, acquisition, we used to have definitely over 10 different reports. They boil down from Google Ads, referral data, social. Now we're going down to technically 3, more like 2, where one's considered an overview. A lot of the data is still in here where you could go down to source medium, the landing page and whatnot. But the main difference is that how it is a lot more simplified. We see this with engagement reports as well, with the landing pages, pages across the content. If you're using app data, which Google Analytics has a demo account for app data as well, which is great to tie in. They have that for app screens, event tracking, conversions, and more as well. And then even user reports. We used to have a large sum of data for audiences, whether that be where they're coming from geographically, what are they interested in, new and returning. That boils down, again, more simplified, which again, for your course, might be a little bit easier to educate on because you don't have to go nitty gritty into all the individual reports that we had previously. And then continuing that leveling up phase is building audiences and segmentation. If you're teaching a tool such as Google Ads within your course as well, or maybe it's another section of the course, this is where it ties really nicely into Google Analytics 4 with Google Ads. So audiences and segmentation was a feature with Universal Analytics. With GA4, we also see that continue with some new enhancements as well, which gets me really excited. So this is something that's great to educate on not only how to build out an audience, but how to use them. Audiences are a feature that let you take existing data within Google Analytics and build out subset groups or audiences of those users to compare them over historical data, see how they interact with the site differently or how they're behaving differently. And then if you're teaching something like a Google Ads course or a section of your course is Google Ads, you can imagine how maybe you could use those audiences. If you're teaching students how to use a campaign or build a campaign, you could actually tie in with Google Analytics 4. By building out an audience, you could link it to Google Ads and then run an ad based off, say, retargeting or based off those users who maybe didn't make a full purchase or didn't convert on a landing page. So these are all great options for how to apply the skill set of building an audience to another portion of your course, such as doing Google Ads. Also, you could see how we could do this as well on this slide. So something like on the left-hand side in Google Analytics 4, building out an audience. The one I have here is if someone saw a product but didn't purchase it. So you could do it based off like cart abandonment or how I mentioned landing pages. They didn't convert on it. and then tying that to Google Ads with your campaigns to retarget them as well. Those are great options. And then for the next one, we're getting more into the custom or leveling up phases that are nice to haves. So explorations are a great new feature of Google Analytics 4. Explorations are essentially a definitely advanced version of the previous custom reports we had in the interface, where we could definitely build in custom reports with different techniques. The default within a lot of the reports with Google Analytics 4 are going to be tables, line graphs, bar charts, which are definitely more simplified. The explorations feature lets you build out essentially custom reports such as funnels, comparing audience segments you build out, user pathing, cohort analysis, and more, which is great for anyone who also maybe has courses that are more related to data visualization as well. There's a bunch of different reporting techniques. So this is another area where students could have assignments where they're building out different explorations and then presenting them to the class based on whatever the data set may be for your course when you're teaching it. This is an idea of the current techniques we have. So you can imagine we have like freeform, which is a table-based report, funnel exploration if you have, say, a checkout form or a multi-step funnel for, say, a form submission. Pathing exploration is definitely more exploratory, where you're clicking around the site to see where a user is going from one page to the next, which is one we used to have in Universal Analytics as well, which would used to be called behavior flow. Segment overlap, so comparing audience segments. And then we also have the options for cohort explorations and user lifetime as well, which were great to have. There's some ideas of like the different types of techniques. So you'll see like a funnel on this slide where it's based off e-commerce, starting from an add to cart all the way to purchase. So if you're partnering with, say, a small business that might have e-commerce, this would be something that you could teach your students on how to build out a funnel report. Or something like user pathing, where they might have a landing page, and then where does the user go next? Are they going through the expected flow we have them going through, or are they derailing and going elsewhere? This could help with understanding the flow of the website and how to make improvements as well. Some different bonus areas is that we could also do event tracking through Google Tag Manager. A lot of the time, there's not a lot of time on your side throughout your course to educate on it. If you have the option for students who might be doing a co-op or an internship, this might be something that they could do as well to learn on the job training. Or if there's other extensions of your course where they can learn it, that's another opportunity for it. Google Tag Manager is another Google product. It is separate from Google Analytics 4, but ties very nicely to it. Essentially, Google Tag Manager is the idea of event tracking of site interactions to get additional data other than page views on the website. So Universal, for example, you would just get what page a user is on. Google Analytics 4 is the idea of how do we get additional data. So the button clicks, the video tracking, they're submitting a form on the site. So how we can use Tag Manager to get extra data. This is also Tag Manager is a method for how to implement a new Google Analytics 4 property as well, which also is a reason why it ties nicely to Google Analytics 4 courses that you might have. Since you might not always have time to teach Google Tag Manager in a course format, the other option is at least explaining what Tag Manager is to students for a short snippet of the class, and explaining what an event could be. And then they could go through the mock website or the website that you're using with your partner for your course to point out what they could be tracking is another option as well. And this is an idea of how it works. You have Tag Manager, that would be a separate account. You would tie to your Google Analytics 4 property. And then within Tag Manager, you would set up small, they're called tags and triggers for additional setup. And you could track anything from button clicks, links, form submissions, e-commerce, and more to get additional data within Google Analytics 4. So again, it's more than just page views of what page someone's on, but it's diving deeper into those individual interactions, which is great for data analysis to understand how to improve a website, to make decisions on how to get something to perform better. So it's one of my favorite tools as well. And then if anyone's unfamiliar, there's another great tool called Looker Studio. It used to be called Google Data Studio for anyone who maybe knew it that way. Essentially, it's another Google product that ties really nicely with Google Analytics 4 and the rest of the Google product suite. So you could tie in the data into that tool, and very simplistically, you could create different charts and visuals and tie all the data together. One of the limitations of other products is that you're only getting, for example, just Google Analytics 4 data and a little bit of Google Ads or just a little bit of Google Search Console for organic traffic. Looker Studio's big benefit is you could tie data from not only Google Analytics 4 and the other Google products, but you could tie it to Excel data. You could tie it to, say, Facebook marketing data. So there's a lot of other tools you could connect it to. And then also hitting on the data visualization piece is that it teaches how to build out different charts and dashboards in a more creative manner as well. And that would be a really great level up portion of a class, or for like some kind of extra bonus assignment, is having them play around with the tool and tying at least one or two platforms to it, and then walking through with the class how they build out a dashboard, showing some different data points. And we see something like this with Looker Studio, where you could have a really nice visual looking report that is a little bit different than just showing Google Analytics on a screen within the interface itself. And then how do we learn and apply to our students? So the main thing is, I honestly think this is one of my favorite ways that I learned throughout the years, but doing some kind of mock agency. I know at Point Park we had this, and I think it's coming more popular with other universities, but a lot of universities are essentially making a mock agency where students from different programs work together to have students be the consultants. And then you're partnering with nonprofits in the area or small businesses for small fee or pro bono services to give your students not only a sense of what it's like in the real world to get experience doing consulting, but also how to not only learn in class and then apply it. But this is the best way to learn and retain information because you're more hands-on than just doing assignments here and there as well. So with that, this is something as well that is a really good way to have it in a timely fashion. It could also be an extension of your course as well, where maybe you have the course and then it's a separate initiative in your university. Also, it's very collaborative and great in a group setting if your students like group projects and presentations. This is something I've done many times over the years, where you're partnering again with like a nonprofit or a small business. And it's a great way to have calls in the beginning to understand the needs of the organization. And then throughout the semester, you could figure out ways to tie it with your material to help the students not only learn, maybe say how to set up a GA4, but also how to give the organization reports throughout the month. That's another great idea to, again, apply and learn. In the chat, does anyone do this currently where they have some kind of like mock agency or you're partnering with local organizations? I'd be curious to know if anyone's currently doing something similar to this at the moment. Very cool. Okay, great. Oh, very nice. I see, Emily, you said your students have a run PR agency. Very nice. Partnerships. That's great to see. I know in Pittsburgh, this is really popular because we have University of Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon. So that's really popular with partnering with other small businesses and nonprofits. That's great to see. It's coming more well-known across other organizations across the US and international as well. So that's great to see. I think the main thing is real world experience. So one of my courses in college, we actually, this isn't for an IT class specifically, but we made a mobile app for a nonprofit that otherwise couldn't get a mobile app. And that's great because, again, you could put that on your resume for your students. So anything along those lines is super vital to them because it's more than just learning, but it's also how they could get some added value out of it to a real world solution. So again, putting that on your resume, you could have the real world experience. And then also you have a fostered connection with whatever organization you're partnering with. And yeah, I see ran into problems with students not having enough experience. That's a lot of times what happens. quite honestly, is I've had an internship, thankfully, that really expanded on Google Analytics 4 through Bounteous. I've been here since college. But the main thing is that otherwise it's kind of hard to learn it on your own if it's not in the class setting. So the more you could help your students get that real world experience is going to be super imperative to them and to keep growing your class as well. The other option is partnering with other programs within your university. I could see with the PR agency, you're partnering with other programs throughout the school. But I think specifically in the idea of a technical program. So if your school has a computer science or an IT program, that might be a great option where those students are already building out websites and mobile apps, and then partnering with your digital marketing course on how do we get Google Analytics on that? And then how can we actually get data tracking on there to have some kind of report? So the students have a project from the tech side, and then how we can actually make it real world with how to communicate with them, how to understand how their side of the project goes. This is something that's also very real world that a lot of students are going to encounter through their dream roles as well. So that's another idea as well. Whether it's not IT or computer science, there might be other programs that's maybe more specific to social media. Maybe there's one that's more related to UX design, where they're designing pieces of material and want to know how it improves over time with different changes. There's a bunch of different options where this really ties nicely to analytics as well. Does anyone currently partner with like a technical course, whether that be like IT, computer science, or any other course at your university? A lot of universities for digital marketing courses don't always have students doing some kind of like light coding course or foundational coding. So that's why this is a good option, because your students might not have time to actually take a like coding class, but at least getting an understanding from that program in general is a great idea as well. And then other than that, that is the presentation. I saw there was a bunch of questions that came in. So I'd be more than happy to take those as well.
Yeah, thank you, Sabrina. That was awesome. And there has been a lot coming through in the chats with a lot of questions. So I want to give everyone an opportunity. Go ahead, and if you have additional questions, type those in the chat right now. We've been tracking those, and we'll get to those in just a second. But while I'm giving you a minute to do that, I just want to remind everyone that 𝐒𝐭𝐮 has the most up-to-date and current digital marketing analytics courseware available. It includes what you need to know to teach Google Analytics 4 to your students. So as a special gift to everyone attending today, we want to offer you free instructor access to our digital marketing analytics courseware and internship. So go ahead and click the link and you can do that. I also want to remind you, go ahead and schedule to attend a product walkthrough before July 31st. And if you do that, we'll send you one of these great t-shirts. So let's look at some of the questions that we have here. All right. So Sabrina, what website would you use to attach GA4 to?
So for your course, you have the option of using the Google Analytics 4 demo account that has access to what's called the Google Merchandise Store, which is mock Google products. If you have the option where you're partnering with, say, a nonprofit or a small business, or you're letting your students create a foundational website to start your class, there's two options for getting initial tracking to your students to get data collected. You could use Google Tag Manager, which is a single code snippet you would add onto the website. If you're using Wix or Shopify, Squarespace, it's pretty much the most easy way to get set up. The other option is on-page code for Google Analytics as well. And those are all highlighted within the course material that they're promoting for 𝐒𝐭 and for that blog article that I wrote as well. So that has that more outlined there. But those are the two methods to get started with data collection.
Okay, great. Another question, now that GA4 has launched, what would you recommend as assignments or certifications for students who are only studying GA4 for 1 week?
Yeah, so for a while, they used to have that Skillshop training certification for Google that was unique to just Universal Analytics. They actually have been updating it to be for Google Analytics 4. So that's an option for students to have as a takeaway to, again, have that on their LinkedIn and their resume after the class. And that should be something that there's enough material to get them ramped up for that week time frame to get that certification as well. I know some people are very excited about it. I would definitely recommend that for a certification. And then for other modules, again, in the course books for 𝐒𝐭 and that blog I wrote, there are different class assignment examples. And this training is recorded, so you should have access to the slides that way as well for anyone asking that way.
Yeah, and we will get this emailed out to everyone, the slides and the recording, just so that you know. Here's another question. I don't have the name on this one, but it says, I always struggle with building audiences. How big is too big? How small is too small? How many parameters should be put on an audience?
There's really no good answer for this, unfortunately. I think in a class format, the best way to think about it is maybe have 2 to 3 foundational ones and 1 to 2 advanced ones. Something foundational could be building out an audience for returning users, something based off of maybe users who've been on the site for X amount of pages or saw X amount of content on the site. Those are something more foundational that should only be maybe 1 to 2 parameters. And then something more advanced could be an audience where it's, again, based off maybe e-commerce, or maybe it's based off of users who are going through a flow of steps on the site. Those would be some of those like level up pieces for audiences that you could be using.
Great. Another question is, how will this GA4 update impact social media marketers?
The big difference, quite honestly, is for anyone who would know, it's called UTM parameter tracking. It's essentially those pieces of small code snippets that attach to a URL that you're maybe putting on Facebook to direct users to your website or through a link tree. And that's how we get a lot of that source medium acquisition data within Google Analytics UA and GA4. So these are actually updating. There's a bunch of new ones rolling out. This is something that Google has resource documentation on. So if you have a class that's talking about UTMs for a portion of how to create those, that's something I'd also touch on because there's new ones with GA4 specifically that they should know.
Okay, great. Great information. How should students and professionals think differently about GA4 versus the old analytics?
Yeah, definitely. I get a lot of questions related to that with my current clients, quite honestly. There's a really hard spot right now where people who are on GA4 still want to use Universal Analytics. Unfortunately, I feel like the best way to teach it is for your class, you, again, are going to be limited on time. Teaching Google Analytics 4 is your priority. If you have time to touch on Universal, maybe touch on it a day, maybe less than that. Because again, you do need a little bit of understanding of how it compares between the two. The big thing though is a lot of companies at this point are on GA4. That's why you should hone in on that platform specifically. There's only the big difference in my eyes is there's added features and it's simplified reporting, and there's more areas of customization, which is a huge benefit for companies. So the more your students are able to navigate the reports, know about some of those advanced features is going to be the most use to them.
Okay, great. So I don't have a name on this one either, but the question was, the problem I'm struggling with is finding a blog conversion that GA4 can easily track. It has issues with recognizing outbound links from buttons as a conversion. Could you speak to this?
Yeah, so the big thing about conversions within Google Analytics 4 that's different than previous is that Google Analytics 4 is based off the idea of event tracking, as I mentioned. So anything like a link or a button click, you have to use for the built out feature within the interface or tag manager. Once that's set up, you have an area of the interface called, it's in the admin pane where it's an event section, and you could toggle on something to be a conversion. If you're having tracking issues, that's something I probably would have to do like a one-on-one with, unfortunately, but that's something to consider. If there's something within an iframe on the site, that could be an issue. So kind of hard to identify on the spot, unfortunately.
Okay, great. Is there a way to track button clicks without needing to incorporate Tag Manager?
Yes, to a degree. Google Analytics 4 has a new feature that we did not have within Universal Analytics, where you're able to build out some events directly in the interface for the admin pane, admin and then events. And then in there, you can, to a degree, track events based off a link click or a link URL or text. So if you have a button that's maybe an outbound to a platform or another site, you could track it that way. If you don't have that data already coming in by default, then you would have to use Tag Manager. I definitely would say it's recommended to use Tag Manager, but for the duration of your class, if it's only a week or two you're focusing on GA4, you can do whatever you're able to do within the built-out feature in the interface.
Okay. So Emily asked, and this was just as you were answering a question a couple questions ago, she said, are you saying past tracking links that are already out there won't keep tracking in GA4?
No. So current UTM tracking, you have source, medium, and campaign, and there's term and content. So those are all staying. There's actually new ones being added called marketing tactic. There's another one based off the source platform. And I want to say there's another one called, I want to say it's another type of like media-based one about what you're running. So you can pass in like QR code, for example, placement of where it's at. So you can actually add more data, but your previous UTMs you might have built out in the past are still available. They wouldn't break at all, is basically the correct answer.
Okay, that's good to know. Next question, how would you approach teaching GA4 as a single unit within a digital marketing overview course? What exercises or approach would you consider most essential and not overwhelming?
I think the struggle is when I was in college is it was what I think a lot of you had your course be the same as, it was a week or two max to learn Google Analytics. That is a very short time frame to be an expert. So as I mentioned, there are a certification course Google has on GA4. That's probably one of the best takeaways to at least get students a takeaway, like something to put on their resume afterwards. And I think going back to those numbered level up stages of the 1 through 7, if you can get through the foundations of how data is tracked and setting up a property, understanding the reports interface and having students maybe pull out some data from them, and then maybe just understanding a high level of event tracking or what could be a tracked item, I think is enough for the class for a short time frame, and that's pretty manageable.
Okay. Sabrina, what would you say to someone who is now learning GA4 but doesn't know UA?
I think from the professor, like academic standpoint, we're all at a phase where technically no one really is an expert in this yet. So it's totally fine if you aren't there yet with knowing it 100%. Google Analytics 4. I don't think for your class you necessarily need to be very knowledgeable on Universal, because at this stage students just need mainly Google Analytics 4. It's a nice to have if they can learn extra Universal Analytics. But if you don't have that skill set, there's plenty of documentation and resources online that do give them that foundational knowledge of what the difference is between the two that you could always share out. Mm-hmm.
Great. Are digital marketing classes the only ones that should cover GA4, or are there others?
If I could be honest, it's mainly covered in digital marketing classes, but back from when I was in college to now, things have definitely changed with the amount of classes offered. There should be actually more analytics offered at the college level anymore. So if you have a program that's maybe more technical, analytics could be taught. If you have a social media course, you could teach them about the UTM tagging, at least at a very minimal level, because that does tie into what they do in terms of how to get the data from Google Analytics, from their UTM links. So there's different pieces that it ties to for sure.
Great. Well, Sabrina, we are right at the hour, and I've gone through every question that I have record of that's been submitted. I apologize to someone if we missed a question. I want to remind each of you that we will be sending out this recording and the slides so that you can review them. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Sabrina. This was very educational. The comments in the chat are amazing. People loved this, and this was very important information for a lot of instructors who were feeling very unprepared for this transition. So hopefully we've been able to help out today. If you did enjoy this webinar and you want to participate in more like this, we do have lots of events here at 𝐒𝐭𝐮, and we invite you to check those out. Also, please remember you can still get free instructor access to the digital marketing analytics courseware, and you can still sign up for the demo and get your t-shirt for free. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We hope you have a fantastic weekend. Thank you, Sabrina, and remember, everyone, to stay current with 𝐒𝐭𝐮. Goodbye.